We need to eat the baby.
I have no respect for women for children, okay? I think so poorly of them, and the reason why.
A family camping trip to the remote Idaho mountains that turns into one of the most high-profile cases in this area is now showcased in the national spotlight. Headline News will feature the disappearance of 2-year-old Dior Coons Jr. this Saturday night.
Dior's parents, Vernal and Jessica, say that they're going to go off and go down by the creek and check out the fish that are down there. They said that they said to Grandpa, hey, can you watch little Dior while we go to the creek? And Grandpa said, sure, that's no problem. The parents go down to the creek, they spend some time at the creek.
Vernal returned to the campsite thinking baby Dior was with the great-grandfather. The great-grandfather thought the baby Dior was with Vernal.
They say to Grandpa, where's Dior? Grandpa says, we thought he was with you. Well, no, we left him with you.
That's when they realized nobody had the baby. And you can see the entire episode of Real Life Nightmare Horror at the Campground this Saturday night on HLN at 6 p.m. That is our time. And again that night at 9 p.m.
Hey, welcome back to my channel. We're going to be changing some things a bit. Instead of having Idaho News and U.S. News Edition, I'm just going to put them together, or just have Idaho News only. And then the U.S. and World News will be on BitChute.com only. HLN to air unseen interview footage during Dior Coons Horror at the Campground special. Idaho Falls. The mystery surrounding the disappearance of Dior Coons Jr. will be the focus of a nationwide television special Saturday night on HLN. Horror at the Campground will air as part of the network's Real Life Nightmare series. Producers traveled to eastern Idaho where they interviewed family members, investigators, EastIdahoNews.com reporter Nate Eden, and others closely tied to the case. HLN's Real Life Nightmare has exclusively obtained hours of record interviews with those closest to missing Dior. Taken in the months after he disappeared, the show description reads, hear firsthand from the missing toddler's family members as they describe in detail what happened on that chilling camping trip. Dior Coons Jr. disappeared while on a camping trip in Lemhi County over 4 years ago. He was with his parents, Vernal Coons and Jessica Mitchell, his great-grandfather Robert Walton, and Isaac Reinwand, a friend of Walton's. There has been no sign of Dior since that day, and nobody has been charged in his disappearance. Mitchell and Coons were named as suspects in January 2016 by former Lemhi County Sheriff Lynn Bowerman, but they have never been arrested. News of the mysterious disappearance of baby Dior Coons ripped through Idaho and baffled the country in 2015. Real Life Nightmare executive producer Elizabeth tells East Idaho the unsolved case still perplexes authorities today. Our hope, by highlighting this story, it may motivate someone to come forward with a tip that could solve the case. Earlier this year, the U.S. Forest Service temporarily closed the part of Timber Creek Campground at the request of Lemhi County Sheriff Steve Penner. He declined to comment about what crews did at the site and said investigators will continue to follow up in the areas as environmental conditions change. The special airs Saturday, November 16th at 6 p.m. Mountain Time on HLN. Nampa police say nobody has used sexual assault reporting app since it was launched. I'm really concerned there has not been enough education about this free trauma-informed resource that is available for the community. Well, in all honesty, if you want to get it out, news is a way, but social media is going to be your best bet. The Nampa Police Department launched the Seek Then Speak app in October of 2018. The intent is for survivors of sexual assault to look at what their options are in an anonymous way to decide on how to proceed forward. They have questions about getting a forensic medical exam related to a sexual assault investigation. The app will walk them through their options of what it looks like to go to the hospital and what it looks like to report anonymously from a Jane or John Doe, what the actual exam consists of so that they can have those answers, Angela Weeks with the Nampa Police Department said. Sexual assault survivors living anywhere can use the app, but for those that live in Nampa, the app will automatically generate a police report with the Nampa Police Department if that's what the victim wants. The app will then complete a police report based on the information and give it to the Nampa Police, where trauma-informed investigators will then follow up with the victim, Weeks said. The app will also direct users to the Nampa Family Justice Center as well. I also hope they have safeguards in place for people that make up sex crimes. But I really do hope that people that are real victims use this app. I mean, I don't know. Maybe the app's dumb. I haven't looked at it. It's all confidential, Jenny Straumeyer with the Nampa Family Justice Center said. Nothing they say is going to be reported unless they want it reported. We have resources here. We have help. We have counseling. We have group support. We have all types of things that are free for them. But in the years since the app launched, no one has used it. Straumeyer says that's not because sexual assault isn't happening. 1 in 3 women sometime in their lifetime will be sexually assaulted, and 1 in 6 men, Strummer said. And I disagree with her. I don't have the actual statistics, but if I'm wrong, please point it out. But I do believe that that is a wrong statistic. There's a lot of videos about it, so I guess if you want, I guess I could get it, but correct me if I'm wrong. I don't really care if I'm wrong or not, but I like to be corrected if I am. So it's a significant problem in our community, and most people don't report because they don't know what's going to happen in the process. The Nampa Police Department has recently put up posters and passed out flyers on the NNU and the College of Western Idaho campuses to better reach students. I'm really concerned that there has not been enough education about this free trauma-informed resource that is available for the community. So we just want to get the word out there, Weeks said. Spore monitoring program helps Idaho farmers contain potato late blight, by John O'Connor from this Idaho State Journal. The Paul area late blight outbreak wasn't much of a story among state's potato farmers in 2019. University of Idaho extension researchers say that fact may be due largely to their new network of 15 spore trappers strategically placed near Idaho farm fields from Pharma through Tetonia. The network, intended to provide growers early warning when important fungal pathogens arrive in the area, was launched in 2017 in participation with industry partners and commodity organizations. There is also a spore trapper in Oregon and machines in Washington's Skagit County and Pasco areas, monitored by Washington State University. Furthermore, UI shares data with Colorado researchers who run their own spore trapping network. We started to get known around the world as one of the leaders in doing spore trapping, said the project's leader researcher James Woodhull, a UI assistant professor of plant pathology stationed at the Pharma Research and Extension Center. We're doing it on a scale that perhaps they're not doing anywhere else in the world. Samples from the UI spore trappers are laboratory tested weekly. UI is developing spore trapping applications benefiting production of sugar beets, dry beans, barley, wheat, and onions. Agronomists began searching Magic Valley potato fields immediately upon learning late blight. The devastating fungal pathogen responsible for the Irish potato famine was detected by a spore trapper in August at the Rupert-based Miller Research Farm. The area's wet and cool weather at the time was ideal for the disease to take hold. Sure enough, late blight infection was soon confirmed in spud fields in nearby Paul. Growers who were at risk were promptly notified by UI and sprayed fungicides. The Paul outbreak was quashed, and researchers got their first glimpse of how a UI spore trapping network stands to save Idaho farmers big bucks for years to come. This could have blown up into a much bigger problem, said Casey Adulman, a UI extension seed potato specialist who is participating in potato research involving the spore trapping network. Spore trapping alerted the people in that region to be vigilant and look for it. In most other states, late blight spores are ambiguous, and farmers can anticipate the disease will surface when weather conditions are optimal for it. In Idaho, Duhlman explained spores may not be present when favorable weather for late blight services. She said predictive models for Idaho need both spore data and weather data, which is the reason why UI is trying to locate its spore trapper near AgriMet weather stations, or its own weather stations. There's no reason to spray if the pathogen isn't there, and also if the weather isn't going to spread it, Duhlman said. In the Paul area, for example, the spore trapper at Miller Research also detected late blight spores during the 2018 growing season, but the disease was never found in the field as weather conditions weren't optimal. Woodhull believes one of the greatest benefits of the network in 2019 was it provided a tool to map where spores were present during the Paul late blight outbreak, which helped avoid panic among growers outside that area. We downgraded the risk, Woodhull said. We were able to show the infection was highly localized in several closed fields. Woodhull would like to add a few additional spore trappers in the Paul area, as it seemed to be a relative hotspot for late blight activity. He also found spore trapping is especially effective for keeping tabs on powdery mildew and sugar beets. We've been finding with spore traps, we get a 2 to 3 week notice of detection ahead of symptoms of powdery mildew, Woodhull said. The network tests for disease such as late blight, white mold, and early blight in potatoes, powdery mildew, and cercospora in sugar beets, white mold on beans, and stripe rust in grain. Juliet Marshall, a UI Extension Keros pathologist, hopes to use spore traps in conjunction with weather stations to help develop recommendations for when barley and wheat growers should spray to protect their crops from stripe rust. She's pleased that the university has added 5 new weather stations to supplement the AgriMet network, including 3 stations funded by the Idaho Wheat Commission. We have a lot of groundwork in order to determine if there's good correlation between stripe rust, spore incident, spore numbers, and disease development, Marshall said. Woodhull explained he originally sought a grant for the network from the Northwest Potato Research Consortium, which awards research grants on behalf of the Potato Commissions of Idaho, Washington, and Oregon. They encourage us to think bigger, Woodhull said. The network started with 4 spore trappers purchased with UI departmental and program funds pooled by Woodhull, Duhlman, and Marshall. The Snake River Sugar Beet Research and Seed Alliance and the Barley, Bean, Potato, Onion, and Wheat Commissions all contributed either for machines or researching involving them. McCain, Jr., Simplot, Basic American Foods, and Lamb Weston have also pitched in to buy spore trappers and have aided with providing locations and operating the network.